Okay, that's really weird. I noticed that. I noticed on my stream earlier when I was editing it, when I go into studio mode, it shrinks down the overlays and stuff on the system. So uh, apparently my co-host left on me. So hi, I'm Brian. It's Tuesday. There we go. And yeah, we yeah, it's Tuesday, and so it's one of those days. It's a lovely sunny day here in San Diego. It was a little warm over the weekend, actually. Warm for us. At least this time of year, it's supposed to be, 70 degrees, about 20 C, 22 C around here. Um, you know, some people in other countries would say that's really warm, like in England or what have you. 70, 22 C is probably a little warm for y'all. Gets up, into the mid 30s here for us when it gets really hot in the mid 90s or low 90s. Uh, but yeah, this weekend was a little on the warm side. I would say it was in the upper 80s, about 29, 28, 29 C, and no wind. I think that's what killed it. So we ended up having to turn on the air conditioning for a few hours while we waited for that to cool off. But it's better now. We're getting back to more seasonal norms. Really excited to go to New York next week. I'll be flying out on Monday. I'll be there until Thursday morning, so I'll have enough time to maybe grab a couple bagels. Want to go up to my place. If you've been watching if you've been watching the stream before, I took other work trips. I extolled the virtues of Don Antonio's in just off Broadway there in New York. One of the what was it? They were like the top. It's like one of the top pizza places in the world. Like they were like number 300 or something on the list, but they're like really highly rated in New York, which is saying something. I mean, I'd love to go to like the oldest operating pizza joints they have in New York, but I don't think it's really close to me. So I'd have to, navigate the subways and such. So something to think about maybe if I've got time. But I get in at like 3:45 or something on Monday. So um yeah, well, we'll play it by ear and see what happens. But yeah. So shit, I'm already yawning, and I'm excited about going there. It's not like I'm bored to tears. So um, interesting. Let me go to studio mode here one more time. Okay, so when I do studio mode for this, no problem. But when I do the intro thing and I do the studio mode, it shrinks it up on the right. And you saw that when you were watching the stream. But yeah, it's just really weird why that's not doing it now. Maybe it's the icons and graphics and stuff that I'm using on that dock. Yeah, let me try that again. Yeah, it's scaling to Windows, so that's weird. Okay. Anyway, so got some news last minute, literally before we come on the air here. There was a judgment. For those of you who've been noticing, there's been a lawsuit that's been going on with regards to DEF CON. Back in, let's see, where is it? Here it is. Um, so DEF CON, the conference, which I have gooned at. So, full disclosure, I have volunteered for DEF CON. Back in, I think 2022. Let me see, when did that happen? 2022. Person, I'm not even calling him gentleman, person by the name of Chris Hadnagy had been permanently banned from DEF CON for conduct unbecoming of a human being, and violated the code of conduct. Numerous witnesses and people had stepped forward about this kind of violation of the code of conduct. At the time, Hadnagy was running the SE Village, social engineering village there, and was running the SCTF that was going on there as well. Oh, yes, as you can see. He'd been a longtime participant at DEF CON and organizer of the SE Village. He was banned from future events forever for code of conduct. So instead of going away and improving himself, like somebody had mentioned in the post, he sued. And sadly, he was a he interviewed on our show back in like 2018, 2019 when his book came out. We have nuked that interview, so you'll not be able to hear it from our show. I even killed the originals from it. Anyway, filed a lawsuit in 2022. Caused him harm or defamation of character, what have you. The initial lawsuit was dismissed in 2023. I believe it was due to a lack of personal jurisdiction. My assumption is he filed it in the wrong place, and he refiled it in the Western District of Washington State. I'm not sure again why it was done there versus Vegas or wherever. I don't understand the whole legalities of things. I'm not a lawyer. In March of last year, the court dismissed several of his claims, including those for business disparagement and unjust enrichment. He has actually written a book. I don't recommend you get it because I don't want you lining his pockets or helping him. It allowed the defamation claims related to so they dismissed some of his claims, but then they allowed the defamation claims to continue with the idea that there was going to be, information that would lead to that. And I believe, DEF CON, February of this year, they filed for summary judgment and dismissal of all of this, revealing detailed allegations, which included some of the witnesses actually coming forward and I believing either being deposed or sharing information about what had occurred at that time. And additional, information was given and submitted by DEF CON, and they agreed. So the motion also stated Hadnagy had been informed of the complaints and had agreed to cease behavior, but failed to do so. So not only was he warned and suggested, hey, stop fucking around, don't fuck it up is kind of the thing that the DEF CON is about. And he went ahead and in fact fucked it up. So, so today they ruled summary judgment in DEF CON's favor. And it's going to be really hard for him, I think, probably to refile. So hopefully that will be the end of it and they can go on about their lives. And should be noted that Hadnagy still is the owner of his company. He has been still does work in our industry. Actually has a conference going on in Orlando in November, sadly, where people are expected to speak at this thing. I'm hoping what we'll see from that is that I think more speakers are going to be dropping out. I thought I saw more speakers on the last time I looked at his conference. And it looks like that there's been several that it looks like maybe there aren't as many speakers as there were before. I don't know, but it's good to see that the right parties have won here, and that we don't have to worry about this person anymore coming to DEF CON and ruining the environment. So anyway, so. Let me post the link up in here. This was on the DEF CON Reddit, so it's legit. I don't think the mods would have allowed it otherwise. There's some links in there to the information. If you're unaware of who Christopher Hadnagy is, there's the whole deposition here. Motion for sanctions and civil contempt. He sought $100,000 in damages, sanctions in the amount of $50K, attorney fees and costs. And he wanted in order for immediate removal of any online postings. There you can read through the whole document. It looks like it's about 9 pages. 9 pages here. Let me see. Yeah, it goes through the whole thing. So it's Wow. Okay. So there may be some laughable bits in here. I'm seeing this thing on March 1st, 2025. Hadnagy received an email from an untraceable sender at tutamail.com referencing Hadnagy's depression meds, salary of $9K a year, along with comments on allegations asserted in the case. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. So yeah, defendant's counsel did not publicly and purposefully release the key piece of evidence. They inadvertently looked over four confidential designations embedded within Adnegi's otherwise non-confidential discovery responses. Where's the? There's usually a summary at the bottom, like TLDR kind of thing. There is no evidence that anyone other than Hadnegi and one anonymous and untraceable emailer received on the Saturday prior to the filing is talking about Hadnegi's salary or his alleged business contacts and depression. Instead, the public focus has been exclusively on DEF CON's motion for summary judgment and undisputed facts of plaintiff's extensive misconduct set forth herein. Uh, Conclusion, there you go. Scope of sanctions for failure to comply with the discovery orders committed to the sound discretion of the court under the circumstance presented here. Namely, this is an inadvertent first-time violation that was promptly corrected. Hadnegi had not established prejudice and defense's counsel admitted to his error. The court concludes the sanctions are not warranted. So, yeah, there's, that's pretty much it, right? They, hopefully that means that they're done and they won't have to worry about any more of this. But yeah, it's sad that it's taken this amount of time and all of money's out of DEF CON's pocket to pay for this to make him go away. So that's unfortunate. So there's some other links in that on the Reddit page as well, probably for more legal documents concerning that. Yeah, there's probably for the various counts that was going through the from the courts. Sorry. Yeah, so you can read through some of the discussion here. Somebody put up a Chat GPT summary, and yeah, so yeah, all right. So found something interesting as somebody who used to work in the government space, in the defense contractor space, and always wondered why we never used open source software. I kind of get it now with regards to supply chain security. We didn't call it supply chain security when I worked in the government space. It was, we couldn't trust it if we didn't pay for it because we didn't get a support contract. That was the whole big thing for a lot of organizations that we had to work with, which is why we bought licenses for Windows. One of the defense contractors I worked with used, CentOS or Red Hat Linux because of the licensing. And at the time, supply chain security wasn't a thing, right? So this is where the DoD is overhauling its outdated software procurement systems, insists on putting security at the forefront of decision-making processes. I don't have a problem with knowing where your software comes from. No, I didn't see that. If only that would keep folks off unsanctioned chat app side quests. Ooh, okay. Yeah, that's a jab at the Secretary of Defense, who is constantly using things like Telegram and or Signal to send messages of a suspicious secret nature to others. So they are looking at ways to handle supply chain risk management, which I think is great. And every company should be thinking about these kinds of things, if only for where your stuff comes from, what risks you have to worry about. Are you actually working with the teams that you say you are? And I think that's one of the issues you come in with open source software. You don't know where it comes from or who's actually working on it. So having some sort of, I don't want to say guarantee, but some sort of knowledge when I keep going back to like buying cakes or pastries or something, but it's like if you don't have an ingredient list, if you don't know what's going on inside of your cake, is it a safe cake to eat? In this case, if you have a product or a software project that you're working on, or trying to sell as well as your go to market, your 0 to 1 ideation, you will have customers out there that want to know how your particular cake is being made, right? What are the ingredients in making the cake? Some customers are a bit more risk adverse than others. And so you're going to run into folks that want to know exactly what's in the cake. If you want to carry the analogy further, they might be allergic to something in your cake. Or in this case, it might be, we don't want software out that, that is managed by somebody outside the US, or we have specific compliance requirements to understand what libraries are contained in your device or your product, so that if there are vulnerabilities in the news, or if some open source project gets owned, as it is wont to do, they can protect against that, or ask us, come back to the company that they bought the software from and said, hey, there's a vulnerability in blah software. What are you doing about that? To hold the people they're buying it from accountable. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. I don't have a problem with that. I would love to have that for the software I use at my company. Um, we're actually working on some initiatives to work on our own inventory system and making sure that things are properly logged in such a way that we can um, be more confident in that, and go to parties that maybe we're using open source software or something and say, here's the vulnerability. How are you going to fix it? Are you going to fix it? What's the priority on this thing? What's the timeline to address this? Because our customers are your customers, that kind of thing. So they said lengthy, outdated cybersecurity authorization processes frustrate agile continuous delivery. Now, that is true. Especially in the government space, sometimes it can be a multi-year process just to get the software you need. Widespread use of open source software with contributions from developers worldwide presents a significant and ongoing challenge. Exactly. The fact that the department currently lacks visibility in the origins and security of software code hampers software security assurance. Now, as I just told somebody on Reddit when they were trying to sell Linux to noobs on the Linux Noobs channel, they tried to suggest that Linux is better because the code is transparent and everybody can look at it and modify it and review it for security issues. I countered to that person, saying that yes, yes, the many eyes fallacy that open source has enjoyed for years is not really true. Nobody actually looks at code that they use. If you bothered to actually take the time to download and review all the code that you use in open source, you would never get anything done. And a lot of and if you do happen to find a bug, that's what upstream is for. That's what pull requests are for. That's what, that's what those are for. The warranty that you get from most open source is this is as is. Don't expect updates. Developers of open source software routinely break that agreement. Again, I have mentioned in the past, I don't know why they put those licenses in there when they say this is as is. It's never as is. They're going to continue making updates to this software. But in this case, the DoD is allergic to something in your code, or could be allergic to something in your code, and they want to know the ingredients in your particular cake so that they can prepare for that and make sure that they can decide whether or not your particular cake, to continue the analogy, is one that they want to purchase or buy or use. Even stuff that they pay for still uses open source software. Google still uses open source software, and they bundle a bunch of stuff in. I'm sure they give you a list of things like we use FFmpeg, we use libpng, we use blah 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 blah, and here's the links to those things. That is a very good way of logging those. Let me see. A public statement from Arrington, I'm assuming this is, Katie Arrington, the CIO at the DoD, went on to say that current software procurement processes are outdated and slow with little to no supply chain visibility. Join the club. You know, the companies you're buying stuff from don't even have an idea of where all their software comes from. So it just, you know, it's a giant ugly waterfall of shit that you're either at the bottom or you're the top, right? I'd rather be at the top of the shit waterfall, but it if you ask a third party, hey, what's all the software you're using in there? They're still probably working on an initiative to log that. And it's like, and I hate getting on the S-bomb train because it's not fun. It's not fun, but it's one of those necessary things. It's not a GRC function. It's not a it's not really a security function either, in my opinion. It's more of a it's like the CMDB stuff that we used to do back in the day. Content or um, shit. The MDB means management database, configuration management database stuff. So it's like CMDB. Configuration management databases. I mean, back in the day before the cloud, you had a catalog of all of the machines in your network and what all those functions of those devices were, or you were supposed to, right? Again, very hard to have an inventory. You had to use tooling or like a file integrity monitor. If you've got software that's licensed out to so many devices, you'll have like, okay, we've got what was that called? Tripwire. Tripwire was another one. Tripwire was a software package. Yeah, it was a security and compliance automation. So it was a licensed thing. So you bought it per seat and you install it on every box. And then, you could use that. And then endpoint security came around and was like, oh, you can create a CMDB based on your, where your endpoint security solutions are installed to, those kinds of things. There are ways to do it. But again, SBOM is the new CMDB. Like you need to know your what your stuff's running on, right? If it's an application, what are those, and SBOM can get really, really specific. You can be really granular, like, going back to the cake, you have eggs, flour, butter, eggs, flour, butter, chocolate, if it's chocolate cake. um, you know, but then it's like, well, what kind of chocolate is it? Is it is it Dutch cocoa? Because there's a Dutch process for that. There might be some, you might add crushed walnuts or something. So you need crushed walnuts. There might be, what the ingredient? Let me find something that has ingredients in, like let's say a little Debbie snack cake ingredients. All right. Can't spell snack for shit, but all right. So according to the, I did not know DuckDuckGo had AI chat scanning on it. So let's go here. There we go. Yes, little Debbie, blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay. That's not what I wanted. All right. So let's just go here. All right. So let's say Little Debbie's what we're buying, right? And so we have the ingredients are sugar, corn syrup, enriched bleached flour, palm and palm kernel oils, and various artificial additives. That could be an S-bomb, but then the problem comes from what are various artificial additives, or um, there's other things there, right? Like maybe it's not as granular as you want it to be. So you can go down to, figuring out what the artificial additives are. In some cases, if it's compiled with certain flags with other libraries that are added, like let's say you're adding TLS or something like that. There's a certain level of granularity that comes with every SBOM that um, sometimes you can give too much, sometimes you can give too little. Uh, sometimes you run into licensing issues. Maybe you're using an open source software that should not be bundled with that. Like if you're using an unfriendly software license, like a CDDL or something like that, if you've licensed something from, god awful Oracle, their license maybe doesn't allow that to be redistributed with your software. So you run into some licensing issues if you're bundling up a bunch of stuff and compiling it together maybe redistribution is not possible. So you could run into problems with that. And that may be a reason why you're not doing an SBOM, because then all of that would come out in the wash. Um, but so yeah, from a supply chain point of view, I don't disagree with what the DoD is looking for. They're looking for ways, and I know that there are, even before the current administration came in, there were compliance requirements that were coming for SBOM creation. So it's not like this is something that is new. There's been a plan for this. I think the EU even has SBOM requirements now for those things. SBOM. So yeah, the Cyber Resilience Act, which is coming out, um, may have started with President Biden's Order 14028, but it's not only U.S. only initiative. Regulations from PCI is also looking at it, the Australian government, and other global initiatives. Even the Food and Drug Administration is looking into it. I don't know if they're doing that now with the current person running that shit. But yeah, the EU is also looking at the Cyber Resilience Act, and they're trying by what most requirements. SBOM takes effect December 2027. So if you do any work in the EU, you're required to have a software bill of materials. And sorry if you're like, you've been sitting here for the last 15 minutes. What's an SBOM? Software bill of materials. It's the ingredients that make your product run. What libraries it uses, what open source it uses. Um, and some customers may want more in-depth version of what that is. They might want to go down to, I mean, you can go all the way down to compiler flags, or you can go all the way down to which version of the library. So if you're not using the most updated version of GCC or glibc or anything like that, you could get hit by that. That could be something that'd be like, well, we want you to use only the latest versions of software in your builds. And so yeah, they're still working out the SBOM requirements for the Cyber Resilience Act, which I will pop that right there. Boom. Sorry, but this is coming. Every company that makes something, software wise, or I guess you could even do a hardware bill of materials, an HBOM for devices. So my Shure, doink doink, my lapel mic, for instance, is a device. It has chips in it. Where do those chips come from? Never mind the firmware that's running on it. That's a whole nother thing. That's the SBOM. The chips, the audio, the DSP, the Bluetooth, the RF chip that exists in these things, or um, in the receiver. I'm not going to play with that because I don't want my audio to go to shit. But where did that get sourced from? Sure, we'll have to create, if they haven't already, a hardware bill of materials for this device right here. Yeah, this one here. Okay. And if they haven't started doing that already, they will. And it's going to start asking some hard questions, because I'm sure a lot of this is, of course, sourced out of China or Japan or Korea or someplace like that. There may be some things that are made in the United States, or in another country of origin. But yeah, you're going to need to know where everything comes from. And for visibility purposes, it's a great idea. Actually, the batteries that exist in the thing that charges the lapel mic, where do those come from? And there's a writing on the inside here. If I could read it, if I was not old, that probably has some information on where some of that stuff come from. Let me see if I can flashlight. Let's see. So it says charging case made in China. Weird. Part numbers. Yeah, so there's part numbers in here. CMC, Anatel. There's an FCC ID. 3.7 volts, 73 kilo. No, 730 milliamp. But there's a whole bunch of insignias in here as well. Don't throw it away, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, they'll have to have that information. They'll either post it in the devices themselves in the packaging or what have you. But it's going to be like an on request kind of thing. Uh, and anyone else? I know I've got some viewers, I got some lurkers, but um, are anybody having to deal with the S bomb? What kind of problems are you having with generating S bombs yourselves at work? Is it resistance from the research or the developers? Is it security just doesn't see it as a problem right now? Maybe it's the other side of the coin. The developers want it, but security people are like, we don't even know where to go with this. And I think that's part of the problem where nobody's really given an idea of how granular you need it to be. I'm sure there's different levels, but it's pretty much wild, wild west. You can just say we have one, but it's not good enough, right? Or it's not as granular as it needs to be. And of course, the more granular you go, the more documentation is required. You may be able to pull some of that from your CI/CD pipelines, but there may be holes. You may be given, you know, you may be blocked because you're using a third-party firmware, but your third-party firmware is coming from I don't know, a MediaTek or an Intel or a Qualcomm, and they just give you a blob, right? They give you and it's like a rock, you know, and they just say put this in place, and then when you feed it 2 + 2, out comes 7. You're like, why is it doing that? I'm expecting 4 on the other side. You can't do anything with this. So your software bill of materials is going to be like, I got a Qualcomm blob here, a firmware binary level operating bits. I think that's what blob is. Um, you don't know exactly what it does, but it's got to be in your SBOM. It's like we get firmware from Intel. If your customer's like, well, we need to know what's in that Intel blob, you're gonna be like, you're gonna have to go to Intel to get that. Um, and you run into those issues. Um, so yeah, it's rough. Class 2, the more critical of the two definitions, categories of important products with digital elements which are defined by their core functionality as firewalls or intrusion detection or prevention systems as class 2. Yeah, so they've got covered products. They have different operating, different areas here. Covered products versus responsible parties, and then they got some documentation on how they want your SBOMs. That's the other thing too. SBOMs can come in different formats. So there needs to be like a universal format. So in some cases, the ability to create a JSON blob or XML or some kind of format that is easily transferable between companies. Because if you use there's so much minutia here, and I'm going down rabbit holes I probably don't need to be, but sharing that information is going to be hard. Um, Sending that data to companies, here's our firmware, here's our SBOM for that, or we're not going to give you an SBOM. They can get it, if they really care about what's in the firmware, send them to us and we'll give it to them. And so within 90 days of this request from this Arrington person, they are looking to have developed a framework and implementation plan for the SWIFT initiative. So I do find it ironic, that they say lengthy, outdated cybersecurity authorization processes frustrate agile, continuous delivery. Additionally, widespread use of open source software with contributions from developers worldwide represents a significant and ongoing challenge. So they say lengthy, outdated cybersecurity authorization processes, but in 90 days, they want a framework to fix that. Now, I will tell you, not only is it the authorization processes that frustrate agile and like really fast delivery of solutions in the government, the processes specifically means that this won't be done in 90 days. It just won't. I've been out of the government service since 2012, and I can tell you that nothing has changed. That 90 days is a pipe dream. Yeah. Um, DoD improving our ability to bring high quality, secure software. Bigger, faster, cheaper. Pick one. Better, faster, cheaper. Pick one. That's it. Yeah. Will greatly increase the lethality and resilience of the joint force. Never heard it called joint force before. That's interesting. That's interesting. It is absolutely mission one that we arm our warfighters with the best cutting edge weapons, but we don't need duplicative and wasteful processes to do that. I love that. It would have been great to see 20 years ago when they were dealing with software procurement then. DoD security has been tested in recent times, from malware campaigns targeting procurement systems to defense partners leaking sensitive information. I think that's the biggest one. I mean, a lot of the breaches that we see with DoD breaches is third parties getting leaked, or contractors that they're using that is not following specific requirements for security. And I think they pull up cyber snoops broke into a U.S. military contractor, stole data hid for months, right? And this was back in 2022. They broke into somebody's Exchange server, because it's still an on-prem server probably. Rummaged through mailboxes for hours and used a compromised admin account to query Exchange versus its Exchange API. And then they used Windows commands to learn more about the IT setup and gathered files into archives. Oh, Jesus. They're using WinRAR. Okay, this is 3 years ago, but Jesus, they didn't have monitoring set up to show. Well, I mean, they had admin accounts, so they were installing software on an Exchange server. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Um, it just kills me. It just kills me. Yeah. Mm, mm, mm. Previous efforts have included campaigns for secure by design software practices, memory safety issues, and the known exploited vulnerability program that mandates all federal agencies must patch dangerous vulnerabilities in a few weeks. I remember when that went down, when they sent out, I think, 14028, which is what President Biden had sent out, and they pretty much brought people in on the weekends to patch stuff. It was like, these are terabad bugs that have been unpatched for months, and everybody's going to come in and patch them. I don't know anybody who had to go in, because I don't have contacts with people that were in the military anymore, but I think there was news stories that had been posted that they were making people come into the office to fix that, or they were going to remove them from like DoD networks, like DISA, which is the Defense Information Agency that handles networking. They were going to disconnect them. Now, I don't know if they actually ever did that, but that was the threat that it was happening. And then, of course, they mentioned the geniuses who were running military operations using a signal channel, which is, and he's a fucking Department of Defense weasel, Peter Hegseth, prolific user of signal for the Pentagon matters. Yes, it's hard to enforce stuff when your own leadership is not doing what they're supposed to be doing either. So that's yet another problem I've got with the government right now. Do as I say, not as I do. And so, yeah, they're gonna look at DoD procurement and what have you to make it better. Hey, Age of Music. Yeah, they did actually pay for. I don't think anybody ever pays for WinRAR. I actually mentioned I mentioned that to somebody the other day. I was on Reddit, and I was on one of the Dungeons and Dragons homebrew, and they were like, the person posted up, and it was a couple of RAR files, and I'm like, seriously, zip exists everywhere. It may not be the most, the most efficient method by which you send stuff along, but nobody fucking uses WinRAR legitimately. I know one person who ever has, and he did it to meme. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah. I suggested the person use zip, because I was like, it's native now in Windows, it's in OS X, and it's unzip is in Linux. I was like, just use that for backwards compatibility other than somebody going like, what the hell is WinRAR? Oh, I'm just gonna, yeah, anyway. So, Windows 10 is ending support in, well, it's May 12th when this was written. So you're looking at about 3 months from now when Windows support is ending. Yeah, support ends soon. Many of the PCs aren't powerful enough to run successors. This better not be a Linux. Go to Linux, fucking jackwall, and don't make me think you're just gonna say, oh, use Linux. Let me just sign these certificates as putty. Yeah, no kidding, no kidding. Yeah, they can purchase a new computer, one with enough oomph to run Windows 11. It's not oomph; it just needs a TPM, right? Which, if your computer has been built within the last 5 years, it has a TPM on the Intel chip or the AMD chip. So the only reason you can't run Windows 11 is if your machine is more than 5 years old. I believe that is what we figured out, right? So if you have a 5-year-old plus machine, yeah, that sucks. They can run the risk of an unsupported OS, not wise in a world that's getting ever more dangerous. That's neither here nor there. They can install an operating system that'll happily run on that aging code. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, it's not. The last option is good. No. I'm sorry I read this article. It's the last option touted by a campaign called End of 10 that should pique the interest of most Windows 10 users. Yeah, Windows 10 users not thinking, yeah, I need to go to Linux. Okay. Um, yeah, it's not the most sense. No, it doesn't. I will tell you, if you can spend $1,300 on an iPhone, you can spend $1,000 on a laptop. That's that's just as easy. That's it right there. Um, if you can, and you're gonna replace your iPhone every year for $1,000 or whatever the trade-in value of it is, 500-600 bucks, you can still get a laptop that can do whatever it is you need. Where did I put that at? Let me see. Did I? Nope, that's not it. Oh, is LinkedIn down? Let me see. I posted to comments. That was comments. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so this was the article that somebody had posted up about advice for people who aren't sure on Linux. Um, but 10 end of 10 offers help. The campaign could end there. End of 10 takes a couple steps further. It offers a bit of help. There's links for finding someone to help you. That link takes you to a page that lists several PC shops around the world willing to help. I just, computer shop, by the way. Um, so the problem I have with the Linux problem, you know what? If you want to use an OS, I have no problem with you. Blow your shit away and put a Linux on there. I would say if you have hey, Digital Warhead, how are you? I'm about to extol the virtues of not using Linux. So I look forward to your flames. Flames keep me warm. I don't have to use a blankie when I get cold. Um, it's not way cheaper because time is a resource. It's time is money, right? So if you're not familiar with Linux in any way, shape, or form, and you're a Windows person or an OS X person, there is a cost to moving to Linux. It is not free because it costs you time. No ads or spying. There's malware on Linux. Just like the myth that people had with OS X for, I don't know, a decade, you know, Macs don't get viruses, Macs don't get malware. That's bullshit. Linux gets malware, Linux gets viruses. Threat actors are targeting. Matter of fact, I looked it up today for that article. Threat actors targeting Linux. I mean, there's They're targeting Linux systems right now with this emerging click fix attack that is happening as of today. Imagine sitting at your desk, coffee in hand, and you're met with a new campaign called Click Fix, burrowing into Linux environments. It's not generic scattershot. This precise work by APT36 is making waves with its knack for cyber espionage. Your usual playbook, exploiting weaknesses while staying out of sight, focusing squarely on Linux systems. This isn't just another line in a long list of threats. So what makes this different? They are, they Linux is a gold mine, especially environments that power enterprise systems and critical infrastructure. They are tied to South Asia. The group focuses on espionage, collecting information from government agencies, academic institutions, and defense sectors. ClickFix paints a different picture, showing their sophisticated. Attacks were calculated and deliberate and precise. So maybe you'd be okay from APT36, but you clicking on a link or drive-by download will not stop you, because unlike Windows and OS X, where you sometimes have to cross-compile any kind of payloads that come from Windows, to run your Python scripts, Python comes installed on Linux. So if it's using Python in any way, shape, or form, you run into issues. If you're going to a PC, if going to a PC shop is helpful, go for it. But there are so many online resources that would pretty much, hell, even PewDiePie has done 2 videos now that he switched to Linux. I've tried moving to Linux. I simply cannot do it. If it isn't the sound card and various systems, I still have to look at hardware to make sure it's supported by Linux. I had nothing but issue. And again, it could be that, the desktop that I was using was hot garbage, but you're still going to waste time and effort. And to your point, Digital Warhead, it's not cheap. If you go to a computer shop, you're going to have to pay them to do that. It's not way cheaper. The thing that most people don't do in the industry is learning how to harden their new Linux OS. Do they need to harden their Linux box, Digital Warhead? Do they harden their Windows boxes? No, they buy Norton. They buy Symantec antivirus. They get a Symantec antivirus for 60 days. You've got people who are used to a UI, whether or not they like it. They're not, they don't know what a kernel is. They don't know what a firewall is. It just works on Windows. They have a firewall that's running on Linux. I would say no spying. I don't know what they mean by no spying, because there are examples of Ubuntu grabbing telemetry. I think that's part of the startup, but you do have to opt out of that. Good for the planet. I don't get that. Maybe they're saying you don't have to throw away your laptop. There are recycling places where you can go and do that. Community support, sure. I mean, as long as you ask the right questions and you don't get, RTFM noob or something like that. I mean, you're going to get that in Windows too. Some folks are going to be like, you didn't, read this article, or, you didn't go there. User control. I mean, unless there's something specific you can't control in Linux that you can't control in Windows or OS X, I don't know. My point is, all these people that think Linux is a panacea and it's going to solve all your problems, you're just replacing one horse with 3 legs with another horse with 3 legs. That thing most people don't do, aren't in the industry. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, and there's so many options, right? I mean, great. Linux has so many options. Well, yeah, Age of Music. The problem is the problems that people have with Windows or OS X. Yeah, you're okay. I'm going to get rid of those. I'm going to use Linux. It's going to be so much greater. You're just replacing one set of troubles for another set of troubles. Windows is better at not having open ports and services that aren't necessary compared to some Linux distros. We shoot those horses. Oh God. Look. No, no, we're not shooting. Uh, wait, hold on. Break education does not condone the yeah, or support the opinions of something, something, something. Your mileage may vary. They'll spend FTs on other battles. Yes, yes. Um, Look, I love Linux. Don't get me wrong. It has its place. I think for a lot of folks, they are overestimating how much they actually use their computers and what they use them for. If you're playing games, yes, you have Steam client on Linux. The person look, this person, I applaud them for their list of things here. So they said, I want to make it clear this post for people who are thinking about Linux or about to install it. If you've already installed Linux, unless you're reconsidering switching, this isn't for you. I want this to help at least one person decide on whether to switch to Linux and share my experience after 6 months of using it. So they said, if you still don't know whether to try it, here's a list of everything I think that I prefer. Now, I looked through a lot of these things and I'm like, okay, they have built-in package managers, they have apt, pacman, etc. Then they also come down here and they mention, oh yeah, Flatpak, Snap, and app image support. And I'm like, yes, there's at least 6 different packaging systems on Linux that you can use. One of the things that I found with Ubuntu, for instance, is I couldn't remember which packaging system I used to install my software on, which meant I ended up having to install multiple versions of that software on multiple different packaging systems. Did I install it in apt? No, I don't know. Oh, was it a Flatpak? No, it was a Snap. No, wait, when it was an app image. No, wait. Oh, no, I ran it in Docker. So it's like there's a problem there. And then some of these just didn't make a lot of sense. More secure by default. Okay, sure. It is less targeted by malware and viruses, but it is still targeted. Um, there was one. Where was that? Lutris and bottles for managing non-native games. Okay, great. You have to install software so you can install software so you can install your games. Dot file management and automation possibilities. As a Windows user, I'm so glad my dot file management is solved. Said no Windows user ever. I don't know what dot file management is, but I'm sure that Linux is going to help me solve that problem that I have never had up until this point. Oh, no, wait, there's yet another packaging system. We have the Arch user repository for rare software. So thank God we have yet more packaging systems to use for things. And then, oh yeah, if you're using non-native games, there's always Wine, which is, and longer hardware lifespan. Yes, that is a positive, 100%. If you've never used a terminal in your life, this is not a positive. Ideal environment for programming and development. Most developers I know use Max and VS Code or Z or Notepad++ or something like that. Not really a positive for Linux in this case. Vast library of open source tools and software. Sure. Greater control over every part of the system. You already mentioned that up here under full system customizability, so that's not really a thing. Free and open source by nature, that's not a positive. It's not a negative, just not a positive. Transparent software you can audit and modify. This was the fallacy that I talked about where you can audit that and modify it. If you've never modified or audited code before, you're never going to do that. Nobody does that. If you do that, that's because it's your job. Your Vim, of course. No, wait, don't leave. I've used I've used both. I'm okay with both. Encourages deeper technical learning. See, this is the payment that I'm talking about right here. It encourages deeper technical learning, or it makes you a better problem solver and developer. Does it make you a better problem solver? The problem solver is you have a problem that you have to solve, which means you have to take time out of whatever it is you're trying to do to solve whatever problem it was. That's right, Asian music. Please don't leave me. Yeah. again, more command line stuff. So there's a lot of duplication here with this person. More packages, great. I mean, extolling the idea of packages. The biggest problems that I had was I don't need 5 audio subsystems. And before you say, well, they have one audio subsystem to rule them all, I don't need jack. I don't need, give me one fucking audio subsystem that just works. You know, I don't want to have to install 5 different audio systems because every system I'm using uses a different one. I don't want an app that runs on Wayland and another app that I need that runs on X, and I can't run Wayland and X at the same time. Uh, Tinker friendly. Again, building your system exactly how you want goes to full system customizability. Better privacy and ownership. I don't see that. And again, this is what I was talking about: escape from Windows and OS X frustrations. Sure, you're just trading them for a different level of frustration. Anybody here ever installed software and forgot how they installed it or how they updated it? Because if you're using a snap or flatpak or an app image or a docker or AWR or AUR or anything like that, have you ever forgotten how you installed software? Because that means you have to install updates in multiple different places to make things work. And that doesn't include software that has its own independent updating function. And to add to the point here, VM or Nano, you've got the holy wars of OSs. If you have a problem, what's the first thing somebody tells you to do? Oh, why are you using this version of Linux? You should use Arch. Or, hey, if you want 10 more CPU flops, why don't you install Gentoo? See, exactly, Digital Warhead. I'm not saying Linux is not a good software to use. It is probably more secure, but only because it's more obscure, right? And we know how security by obscurity works. Because are you going to buy antivirus when you install your OS? Probably not. Does Linux come with an endpoint security software? No. Am I going to have to learn eBPF to, lock down my kernel and harden my OS? I shouldn't have to. I'm going to have to buy antivirus or something for that, which is going to cost me money, which means it's not cheaper. Yeah. This rant has been brought to you by an old geezer. That's why I went to Mac. I actually went back to Mac after several years because they got rid of that ugly ass touch bar and they stopped sucking. I like a good terminal. I used WSL2 terminal. I was using iTerm2 until I found that some things won't run in it, but will run in the native terminal. So I just said, fuck it, I'll go back to the native terminal because it does everything I need it to do. Linux is great. But as a noob moving from Windows 10 to Linux, you're on your own. Because if you're trying to type a question inside your phone here because if something's broke and what's the log files? Well, how do I get those? You need to post your log files. No, thank you. I'm not interested in working remote for somebody who hit me up on text message. There's costs. It's not free. Linux is never free. I don't. Yeah, sorry, Age. I'm not going to engage somebody who hits me up on text message. I'm not sure how they did that. So they probably just blasted out 150 numbers. But some of these things are specious. No telemetry or built-in data collection. If you don't know what the participation bit for Ubuntu is, it's telemetry and built-in data collection. But yeah, nothing is free in open source. It's not free. It's not open source. It costs something. But the one thing I would tell people, because you're like, well, Brian, what's the answer? That you didn't ask that question. But when I moved over a long time ago, when I was like gung-ho Mr. Security. I wanted an OS that was built for security. Security is a priority. Thanks, Sage. I appreciate you've been sharing all my info. That's important. You're actually doing quite well because I don't think I've shared my phone number on here. But one of the things when I was moving over from, because I was Mr. Gung Ho Security back in 2003, wanted to be all secure about everything, including my OS. I went on OpenBSD because I like pain, or didn't realize it at the time, but I liked pain. The one thing I realized was if I was going to make a successful move to OpenBSD from Windows, which I was using like Windows 2000 or something at the time, I needed to understand the software I was going to use on OpenBSD. So I found everything that I would be using on OpenBSD and finding the Windows version of it. So browser was Firefox. So I moved, I installed Firefox, which at the time was called Firebird. And it was very nice and lightweight, and it was very cool. And it was like version 0.7 or something like that. There was a Firefox or Firebird version of that browser on OpenBSD. So I was like, solid. I needed an email client. And this was in the before times, before Gmail was around or was invite only or whatever. Thunderbird from Mozilla was quite good. So I installed Thunderbird on my Windows box and used that. Microsoft Office didn't exist, and the only thing they had at the time was openoffice.org, which was just god awful. But this even predated Google Docs and all those things. So installed openoffice.org on my box, and if you like pain, just use Arch. I was going to say if you like pain, just use Gentoo, but I probably just pissed off all the Gentoo persons out there that use them. I've seen a lot of people, especially at events that I go to for work, they like to use Arch Linux quite a bit. Great, Veeam. Oh, excellent. I figured, see, Age of Music, I sign people up for Rapid 7 or Rabid 7 as we're called. Just tell them that they're a 100,000 seat company looking for, the best in breed security tools. But that lessened the impact for me to move from Windows to OpenBSD in this case, because I already knew how to use Firefox, already knew how to use Thunderbird, already knew how to use the Office suite that existed on there. Even OpenOffice.org was god awful. And I got used to the command line. That was really the thing that got me. But I learned it, because I had to, including networking. So, setting your net mask and setting your network connections on OpenBSD. Hardware was still a problem because they didn't support a lot of things at the time. So, reading their man pages for like, well, these are the drivers that we support, and these are the devices you can buy that use these firmware drive, this firmware driver. So if I bought a Buffalo wireless chipset with a Raylink chip in it, does that Raylink chip get supported by that? And so hello. Thank you. I got poke chops, y'all. So, pardon me while I eat. You lessen the impact by doing that. So if you're going to go to Linux, remember it's not free. It's going to cost you something, and you need to understand that. Make sure that you prep yourself. Skip man pages, TLDR is where it's at. I think I've used TLDR a long time ago, but TLDR are the man pages, right? Used to, you could have the option where you could skip the man pages and not install them. But yeah. I don't want to eat with y'all on screen because my table manners are atrocious. But yeah, let me see what else. What else did I have here for discussion? Huntress. I had an interesting article about Time is money. So ransomware, time is money. They talked about some metrics that they gathered based on some work that they were doing. Uh, there we go. Huntress. Um, and yeah, they were talking about bringing in the money. They said there's an average of 18 actions that threat actors have to do. I think that's what they said before they hit ransom. See, why is time to ransom important to track? Let's take a step back and look what this metric tells us. It's measured in the average number of hours it takes for attackers to move from initial access to the actual deployment of the ransomware. We saw faster deployment times from some threat actors, including Play, Akira, Dharma, Crisis, and longer times from others, including, ironically, Rapid and Phobos. You were the base player for the leftover tacos. There are no leftover tacos. That's why it's ironic, right? There are no leftover tacos. Another metric we studied was linked to the actual malicious activities that threat actors carried out in a 48-hour window before triggering malware, like commands that supported privesc or privilege escalation and lateral movement. And ransomware actors like Phobos and Maze carried out more than 30 actions on average before deploying malware. On the other end of the spectrum, Conti, Play, and Black Basta carried out fewer than 10 actions on average. So their playbooks are a certain way, and I would say Phobos and Maze, you have 30 actions to be detected in versus 10. So, in some ways, depending on how well or how poor your monitoring is, you would be maybe more likely to detect Phobos and Maze, or the output or the action outcomes from what Phobos and Maze were doing versus Black Basta, because they have to do everything right 30 times, or 29 times in this case. Whereas Black Basta, Conti, and Play need fewer than 10 actions. There was one thing I saw in here, was like 17 hours. Yeah, there you go. Time to ransom is almost 17 hours. So you have 17 hours to figure out these people, right? So when they first start getting into you, 17 hours until they've done their persistence, or they've done whatever it is they need to do the next bit. So very interesting write-up from Huntress on that. I'm hoping what we'll see, if not later this week, we'll see our good friend Sockville with his threat intelligence report, because this came out today. Yeah, it came out today. So hopefully this will be one of the questions on the list there. But yeah, it's just kind of interesting to see some of the immediate activity immediately prior to ransomware exfiltrating the data. Is like, once they start exfilling the data, you really have a small window, right, before they hit you with ransomware, because they've taken your data. Now they want to burn it down, right? So you run into those kinds of things. So on average, exfiltrating the data before ransomware is the ideal way to go. Privilege escalation is the very small version of that, or credential access. So let me see. Why should we care about time to ransom? Looking at actions that threat actors perform and the time spent performing them before triggering can give a rough idea of the opportunities they have before detection in an attack before ransomware is deployed. Average length of interruption after ransomware attacks was 24 days. I mean, hours-long attack could lead to a weeks-long disruption on the victim's end. So, yeah. And of course, I'm sure they're going to sell you some product at the bottom here or whatever. But create an incident response playbook, reviewed and understood across the chain of your command. Who handles what across immediate remediation, containment, and recovery phases. How data breach notification procedures and compliance issues will be handled, and how details and updates will be communicated both within organization and with the public. So 2 of the 3 of these are mostly helping your PR people explain, we haven't been breached, no customer data, we care about your safety and security, no customer data has been taken, more details to follow. And then your next one will be like, well, we got completely owned, they were in for months, that kind of thing. So anyway, I'm going to go enjoy my dinner. My wife has made a lovely dinner of, pork chop. She grilled the pork chops. A little haricot vert here. Okay, well, I'm going to go. And I may be on tomorrow, not on this stream, but on the other stream. And who are we going to stream? Who are we going to raid? They don't clean the table. Who are we going to raid? Double dig? InfoSec. JD does dev. Okay. JD does dev. Copy / raid. I've never met this person before in my life. I do not know what to expect, but I hope everybody will go and enjoy JD does dev. Anyway, I will talk to you all very soon. Friday, we'll do some boot.dev. I'm hoping to get through this OP stuff fairly quickly and get on to some other things. So have a great day. Talk to you all soon. Be safe and take care. All right. Bye, everybody.